Picture a boy, maybe 9 years old, standing over his father's body. His father has just been poisoned by a rival tribe at a feast, dead within days. And now, instead of inheriting his father's position, the boy watches his own clan strip his family of everything: horses, followers, status, and abandon them in the open steppe to die. No one steps in to protect them. No one is coming to help. That boy's name was Temujin. You know him by the name he gave himself, years later: Genghis Khan. Most people already know the broad strokes. Nomadic warlord, biggest land empire in human history, name synonymous with conquest. But conqueror undersells what actually happened across the roughly 20 years of his campaigns, and it undersells it by a staggering margin. The scale of death connected to Genghis Khan isn't just large. It might be one of the largest human death tolls ever caused by a single individual's decisions, and the way he achieved it wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, engineered, and used as a weapon on purpose. Let's start with the boy in the steppe, because his childhood explains almost everything that came after. After his father's death, Temujin's family was reduced to near total destitution. His own clan left them behind. For years, by most historical accounts, the family survived on marmots, roots, and whatever they could scavenge, a far cry from the son of a minor Mongol chief. At one point, Temujin's older half-brother mocked and undermined him once too often, and Temujin killed him, reportedly with his own hands. He was around 14 years old. This wasn't a footnote in his later mythology, it was an early, brutal signal of exactly how far he was willing to go to secure his own position, even within his own family. From that starting point, essentially nothing, Temujin spent the next several decades doing something almost unheard of on the Mongolian steppe: uniting dozens of constantly warring, historically hostile nomadic tribes under a single command. By 1206, he had succeeded completely. A council of tribal leaders declared him Genghis Khan, meaning something close to universal ruler, and for the first time in centuries, the Mongol tribes stopped fighting each other and started fighting everyone else, together. Here's where the story most people know starts to diverge sharply from what actually happened. Genghis Khan didn't just build an empire through military skill, he built it by making terror an explicit, calculated strategy, not a side effect of war, but a deliberate tool used to save time, resources, and Mongol lives. The clearest example of this is the invasion of the Khwarazmian Empire, which covered much of modern-day Iran, Uzbekistan, and Central Asia. In 1218, Genghis Khan sent a trade caravan toward Khwarazmian territory, an attempt at peaceful commercial contact. The governor of the border city of Otrar, on his own initiative, or possibly with the Shah's approval, had the entire caravan seized and executed as suspected spies. Genghis Khan then sent official envoys demanding justice. The Khwarazmian Shah had those envoys killed too, and sent back the severed head of at least one of them as a response. That was the spark. What followed was one of the most devastating military campaigns in recorded history. Mongol forces swept through the empire's major cities, Otrar, Bukhara, Samarkand, Urgench, and systematically destroyed them. The city of Urgench alone reportedly took Mongol forces months longer to subdue than expected, and by the time it fell, the destruction was so severe that later Persian chroniclers described the executions in numbers so large that modern historians consider them logistically implausible, even while agreeing the actual death toll was catastrophic. The city was leveled, and according to multiple contemporary accounts, the Mongols diverted a nearby river to flood the ruins entirely, erasing what was left. This is where we have to talk honestly about the numbers, because they're genuinely difficult to pin down, and reputable historians disagree by an enormous margin. Some estimates for total deaths across all of Genghis Khan's campaigns run as low as the low tens of millions. Others, factoring in secondary deaths from famine and disease that followed in the wake of destroyed farmland and irrigation systems, run as high as 60 million or more. Britannica places the figure at roughly 40 million people, concentrated especially in China and the region that is now Iran. What all serious historians agree on, regardless of which end of that range they land on, is that the death toll was almost certainly in the tens of millions at a time when the entire global population was a small fraction of what it is today. Some estimates suggest Mongol conquests may have killed somewhere around 10% of the entire world's population at the time. Even the most conservative modern assessments still land the number in a place that's almost impossible to comprehend at a personal, human scale. And crucially, this wasn't chaos, it was strategy. Genghis Khan's forces developed a specific psychological pattern that repeated across nearly every campaign: offer a city the chance to surrender peacefully first. Cities that surrendered were often absorbed with relatively minimal violence. Their skilled workers and soldiers folded into the Mongol war machine. But cities that resisted, especially after having already been warned, faced complete and deliberate annihilation. Entire populations killed, structures destroyed, survivors sometimes driven ahead of the army as human shields for the next siege. Word of what happened to resisting cities spread ahead of the Mongol army faster than the army itself could travel. By the time Mongol forces arrived at the next city, its residents often already knew exactly what their choice was going to cost them. Genghis Khan didn't just conquer through overwhelming force. He conquered through reputation, a reputation he built quite literally through massacre. Now, to be fully accurate and fully fair, the story doesn't end there because presenting Genghis Khan as pure, uncomplicated brutality would be its own kind of historical distortion. Within his own empire, once a city or region submitted, Genghis Khan governed in ways that were genuinely unusual for his era. He established a formal legal code known as the Yasa that applied to Mongols and conquered peoples alike. He practiced real religious tolerance, allowing Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, and other clergy to operate freely without forced conversion, a policy his successors largely continued. He built an extensive relay communication and postal system across the empire that some historians credit as a genuine precursor to modern logistics networks. And promotion within his military and administration was based substantially on demonstrated ability rather than noble birth, an approach that let genuinely skilled commanders rise regardless of their background. None of that erases the death toll, but it does mean the full picture is more complicated than either brilliant unifier or genocidal warlord captures on its own. There's one more strange twist to this story, and it involves you, or at least might. In 2003, a team of geneticists led by researcher Tatiana Zeryal published a study identifying a specific Y chromosome lineage carried by roughly 8% of men living within the historical boundaries of the Mongol Empire and about 0.5% of men worldwide. That adds up to somewhere around 16 million men alive today. The researchers proposed, though it remains a widely discussed rather than universally proven conclusion, that this lineage traces back to a single common ancestor roughly 1,000 years ago, someone whose descendants would have needed extraordinary reproductive success to spread that widely, that fast. Genghis Khan and his immediate male relatives, given their documented practice of taking multiple wives and concubines across every conquered territory, are the leading candidate. If the theory holds, one of history's most destructive individuals may also be, quite literally, one of the most widely reproduced. Even his death remains genuinely unresolved. Genghis Khan died in 1227, most likely somewhere in his 60s, during a campaign against the Western Shia. The most widely accepted explanation involves complications from a fall off his horse the previous year, though other contemporary and near-contemporary accounts suggest illness, or even, in some later legendary retellings, assassination. His followers deliberately concealed the location of his burial, reportedly killing anyone who witnessed the funeral procession and even the workers who dug the grave, specifically to keep it hidden forever. Centuries of searching, using everything from historical records to modern satellite imaging, have never definitively located his tomb. So where does that leave the actual answer to the question? Genghis Khan built the largest contiguous land empire in human history, reorganized how war, trade, and governance functioned across an entire continent, and, according to genetic research, may be a direct ancestor to a meaningful percentage of men alive on Earth today. He also, through calculated, repeated, deliberate use of mass terror as a military strategy, is connected to a death toll that even the most conservative historical estimates place in the tens of millions. Both of those things are true at the same time, and neither one cancels the other out. That's not a comfortable answer. It's just the honest one.